Some battles are just footnotes in history, little skirmishes that don't decide much. But others are the entire chapter. Today we're diving into one of those chapter-defining moments, the Battle of al-Qadisiyyah. And this isn't just a story about swords and tactics. This is the story of how a centuries-old empire was brought to its knees and how a new global power literally rose from the dust to change the world forever. Just try to picture it. The year is 636 CE. A cold dawn is breaking over the plains of what is now southern Iraq. The air is still, but it's thick with tension. You can almost smell the thousands of men and animals waiting. Two massive armies are staring each other down across a dusty plain. For the Sasanian Persians, this is it, a defense of their homeland, a legacy stretching back for centuries. But for the invading Rashidun Arabs, this is a fight for a new future, and they're riding a wave of incredible momentum. Everything, and I mean everything, is on the line. Okay, so to really get why this one battle was so incredibly important, we have to understand the world it happened in. The 630s were a time when the old order, the world that had existed for generations, was basically crumbling. What's so wild about this time is that the whole world was just exhausted. For almost 30 years, the two biggest superpowers around, the Byzantine and the Sasanian empires, had been fighting each other to a complete standstill. This was a total war that left both sides completely drained of soldiers, money, and political will. The Sasanians especially were in chaos, dealing with assassinations and civil war. And right into this giant power vacuum steps a brand new force, just bursting out of Arabia with unbelievable energy, the Rashidun Caliphate. They were unified, they were motivated, and they were expanding at a speed that absolutely shocked the old world. And what were they all fighting for? The prize was Mesopotamia. This was not just some random border region. This was the richest, most valuable land in the entire Sasanian Empire. It was their agricultural heartland, their economic engine. It was also the front door to their capital city, Ctesiphon. For the Sasanians, losing Mesopotamia was unthinkable. For the Caliphate, conquering it meant breaking the back of their biggest rival. Whoever controlled Mesopotamia would control the fate of Persia. So let's meet the two sides in this fight. Because this isn't just a clash of armies, it's a clash of entire military philosophies. You've got the old-school, heavy-hitting champions on one side, and on the other, the fast, hungry challengers of the new world. This contrast is absolutely central to how the whole battle goes down. And this chart just lays it all out. The Rashidun army, led by Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, was way outnumbered, maybe 30,000 men. But these guys were veterans, hardened by recent campaigns, and they fought with a fierce sense of purpose. Their whole game was about speed, mobility, and a flexible command structure. The Sasanians, led by the veteran general Rustam Farrakhzad, were a massive force, maybe twice the size, or even more. They were built on the classic model, heavily armored cavalry, dense blocks of infantry, and of course their ultimate weapon. And here they are, the war elephants. Seriously, think of these as the main battle tanks of the 7th century. They were armored, they had towers on their backs filled with archers, and their job was simple: charge straight at the enemy infantry, create absolute terror and chaos, and smash the line open for the cavalry to pour through. If you're a foot soldier on the ground, the sight and sound of that coming at you, well, it was the ultimate test of your courage. This was the Sasanian ace in the hole. So the stage is set. The armies are ready. But what happens next isn't some quick fight that's over in an afternoon. No way. This is a brutal 4-day ordeal. A marathon of endurance, tactics, and sheer desperation that would grind both armies right to their breaking point. Let's walk through it. Day 1 is all about testing each other out. A few skirmishes, some probing attacks, commanders getting a feel for the enemy. Day 2 is when the Sasanians unleash their trump card. The elephants charge. And for a minute, it looks like the Rashidun lines are just going to completely shatter. Day 3 just becomes this awful grinding meat grinder of a fight. Pure attrition, no end in sight. And then there's Day 4. Day 4 is when everything changes. But wait, how did the Rashidun army even survive Day 2? How do you deal with those armored monsters? Well, this is where their tactical genius really shines. Instead of panicking, they executed a very disciplined plan. They knew they couldn't stop a charge head-on, so their archers focused their fire with 2 goals. First, take out the riders in the towers. And second, and this is brutal but effective, they aimed for the elephants' eyes to cause panic. See, an elephant that can't see or doesn't have a rider isn't a weapon anymore. It's a terrified, multi-ton liability that's just as likely to trample its own troops. By day 3, the day of agony, the battle is a complete and desperate stalemate. The elephants are pretty much neutralized, but now the fighting is shield to shield, up close and personal, and just unbelievably exhausting. The Sasanian commander, Rustam, sees his advantage slipping away. He actually gets off his horse and leads a charge himself, trying to force a breakthrough. It's a move of pure desperation. But the Rashidun center, even though it's battered, refuses to break. Their discipline is incredible. The lines hold. Okay, so after 3 days and nights of non-stop brutal fighting, both armies are at their absolute limit. The men are running on pure adrenaline. But this bloody stalemate is about to be shattered, thanks to a combination of chance, chaos, and one single, fatal moment nobody saw coming. So what was it? After all that fighting, after thousands of men had died on both sides, what was the final straw that tipped the scales so dramatically? It wasn't just one thing. It was a perfect storm of factors. On the 4th day, a massive dust storm blows in from the desert. It chokes the air, whips sand everywhere, and cuts visibility down to just a few feet. In that kind of chaos, communication completely breaks down. The very rigid, top-down Sasanian command structure just starts to fail. But the smaller, more agile Rashidun units, they're actually better at operating in the confusion, and they press their attack. And then comes the fatal blow. Somewhere in that swirling dust and confusion, the Sasanian commander-in-chief, Rostam Farrokhzad, is spotted. This wasn't some targeted assassination. He just got caught up in a skirmish in the chaos, was wounded, and was killed trying to get away. A random encounter in the middle of a storm just decided the fate of an empire. The effect is instantaneous. It's catastrophic for the Sasanians. Rostam wasn't just any general. He was the glue holding that entire massive feudal army together. The second the news of his death spreads, morale doesn't just dip, it completely shatters. The entire army dissolves into a terrified mob, breaking and running for their lives. It's a total rout. So the Battle of al-Qadisiyyah is over. The dust settles. But its consequences, well, they're just getting started. The outcome of these 4 days of fighting isn't just going to redraw the map of the region. It's going to redraw the map of the world. And the speed of the collapse is just staggering when you look at it. Al-Qadisiyyah didn't just defeat the Sasanian army. It annihilated it. With their main fighting force gone, there was nothing left to defend the heartland. Within a single year, the Sasanian capital, a city that had resisted Roman legions for centuries, fell almost without a fight. And in about 15 years, an empire that had stood for over 400 years was just gone, completely absorbed into the new caliphate. So, why does this one battle matter so much? Because it was the tipping point. It didn't just end a war, it ended an entire era of history. That centuries-long rivalry between Rome and Persia that had defined the ancient world, it was over. A new power was here. This battle opened the door for a new language, a new religion, and new ways of governing to sweep across the region, creating the fundamental political and cultural landscape of the Middle East we still see today. And this isn't just some story lost to the mists of time. In a really cool modern twist, archaeologists started looking at declassified spy satellite photos from the Cold War. By tracing the ancient riverbeds and canals that were described in the historical accounts, they've now actually pinpointed the likely location of the battlefield. A place that was lost for centuries has been found again. We can now look at the very same ground those soldiers fought and died on, almost 1,400 years ago. It really leaves you with a final thought, doesn't it? If modern tech can uncover the secrets of a pivotal battle from the 7th century, it just makes you wonder, what other huge, chapter-defining moments from our history are still out there, buried just beneath the sand, waiting for us to rediscover them?